Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's edition of Press Hour. Le Cameroun, c'est le Cameroun. Literally translated as Cameroon is Cameroon. In other circumstances, the statement is transformed to l'impossible n'est pas camerounais, or as we have it in English, that there is nothing impossible with Cameroon. The initiators of the notion simply mean that what has failed or does not work elsewhere has succeeded, is succeeding or works in Cameroon. Many a Cameroonian use this statement with conviction. Yes, they believe in it. Yet there is a good lot of them who use it mockingly or with the highest sense of humor imaginable. But mind you, for it is written, words have power. Take your Bibles and turn to the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 12. I read for you. For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even the dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. Hebrews 4:12. These words we use on Cameroon. Cameroon is Cameroon. Nothing is impossible with Cameroon. Will work for our country because words have power. The Franco-Cameroon component of the France involvement in combating the independent fighters in Cameroon was presented to the President of the Republic this week, following a similar mission to the French President the other day. It is a new approach to problem solving. Recognition of facts, attribution of responsibility, apologies, and why not reparations, and then way forward. The way forward, and the way forward is peace. Words have power. I'm Kilian Dandifon in Yaoundé. Thank you. This is Press R, and we are broadcasting live from Studio 4 of the CRTV Production Center here at Mbaladu in Yaoundé. The topic for today, we have the research component of the Joint Cameroon Commission on France's role in involvement in the combating independence and opposition movements in Cameroon from 1945 to 1971. That's what we are going to look at after presenting the report of this commission to the French President, Emmanuel Macron, and to the Cameroonian head of state, President Paul Biya. What next? What even is in the report? That is what we're going to look at in Press Hour today, and I know all of us are asking so many questions. We are going to represent you to ask the questions to one of the commission members, Professor Willibrod Zengwa, who carried out with his other members the research, handed in the report to the two presidents, the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and the President of the United Republic of Cameroon, President Paul Biya of the Republic of Cameroon. If you want to correct that, thank you. We also have another person, Prince Ejede Epie, researcher in history. He is also a politician. We're going to use him to see what's happening, what Professor Zengwa would have said. We'll see how we can bring it back home with some other person who is researching in history. Thank you for coming to Presa.
The pleasure is mine.
Yes, Ngala Kilian is a freelance journalist and editor-in-chief. Kilian, welcome.
Thank you, Kilian.
Yes, I mentioned Professor Willibrod Zengwa's name. I didn't welcome him. I want to end with him because I want to ask him some preliminary questions when I introduce him. Prof, thank you once again. You are coming to Press Hour this time in a capacity that has gone round the world, representing your profession, representing the country, representing even two countries. You're welcome to Press Hour.
It is my pleasure, Killian, to be here to exchange on a few facts and figures. Thank you for inviting me.
I saw you greet President Emmanuel Macron, the President of the Republic of France, spoke with him. You came back here as a member of the Commission. You handed over the report. You greeted the President of the Republic of Cameroon. I should just ask you a question, greeting the two presidents, working on a very sensitive document. How do you feel being a member of such a commission?
Well, very coincidentally, I was made a member of that commission. And I feel very elated that I was spotted out as, quote, a fine researcher who could make a contribution. One of the greatest aspirations of every researcher is to do work that should be left for posterity. I think that is the most important point here, that we've done work which future generations will be able to consult. Meeting with two heads of states, well, it was just work well done that was crowned at the top by the people who sent us, who created the commission to get into the field and do the research. So it was just a logical end, reporting to those who gave us the mandate to effectively engage in the study.
You will tell us what is in that report. You will tell us what is not in that report. You're going to tell us the things that you expected to be in that report, that your personal input, and you will tell us after that report, what do you expect? What do Cameroonians, some of us expect? Because this is a very sensitive issue. You tell us more than that.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But for now, Emmanuel Lavemnu read the newspapers for Press R. Let's watch.
Politics got the better of newspapers the weekending. Biya is the choice of traditional rulers for the 2025 presidentials in the Guardian Post, as traditional chiefs gratify Biya with popular endorsement in the median. Royals declare for fun of funds Biya in municipal updates, and Cameroon Insider sees traditional rulers forever with President Biya since they threw full weight behind him in Newswatch. To the reporter, not only traditional rulers but Muslim religious leaders too declare for poor Biya, and in no time Akere Mona questions the impartiality of traditional rulers. In the Horizon, breaking news Bileng quotes Dr. Chris Fomoyo: if the ruling CPDM decides to renew trust in 92-year-old Biya as candidate, they should be prepared to live with the consequences. Before the post-weekender questions, will Kamto make the presidential cut amid eligibility crisis? The Horizon newspaper then presents reasons why Kamto is disqualified from the 2025 presidential election. Breaking news Bileng rather highlights the opinion of Cabral Libi, who is emphatic that joining forces with someone who has worked with the regime in power, one should be ready to be betrayed. Tomorrow, Honorable Ninche then defends the legitimacy of Kamto's candidacy in the Horizon. Immediately, Ninche hints on endorsing Kamto as FCC candidate in the Guardian Post. Cameroon Insider rather presents the game plan to beat peculiar challenges in voter registration drive in the Northwest and Southwest regions. At a time, Elekam board chair and stakeholders assess voter registration in the Northwest in municipal updates. Senator Neban Ndosiri calls on women to register massively and vote wisely in the reporter. But the lack of functional identification post in the Northwest is said to be hindering voter registration in Newswatch. At a time, the report on French repression on nationalist movements in Cameroon from 1945 to 1971 is received by President Biya in Cameroon Tribune, then says report is gateway to full truth. In Cameroon Insider, the Post indicates that the report exonerates France from arrest, trial and execution of Cameroonian nationalists. But Cameroon Tribune differs with this and reports that the 1,000-page report brings to light some part of hidden history of France's role in Cameroon's independence and documents crimes committed, while highlighting the necessity for reparation of families who were victims. Then Bia Hale's reports says it is time to build on findings in municipal updates. Just when Acting Minister of Mines says government to pursue exploitation of industrial mines in 2025 in the Guardian Post, Professor Fukalistus Gentry outlines 2025 action plan and prioritizes presidential directives in the Voice. Mine stakeholders drum local transformation to boost growth in municipal updates, then vows to implement presidential directives in the Herald Tribune. The interest of the Post newspaper is on corruption, bottlenecks, and high taxes scaring away diaspora investment in Cameroon. The Islamic Development Bank then scores Northwest High for the reconstruction plan implementation in the horizon. Government is said to have recovered 14.5 billion CFA francs on due salaries paid to absentee workers in the Guardian Post. Trump is said to deport 1,736 Cameroonians in the Post newspaper. The Horizon reports that about 1,736 Cameroonians are to be expelled from the United States, while the Guardian Post says over 1,700 risk deportation from the U.S. At the time, statistics in the Herald Tribune reveal that Cameroon is home to 400,000 refugees, 16,000 asylum seekers, and over 1 million internally displaced persons. The Post rather indicates that all these people are at risk due to public safety, which is at stake as a result of a surge in counterfeited and expired beverages in the country. The Association of English-Speaking Journalists, Kamasej, Bamenda and Yaoundé, then get new leadership in the Herald Tribune. To the Voice, Sir Terence dethrones Jude Moma to win Bamenda chapter president, while Adjumani Francis takes the helm in Yaoundé. Then funds of Mwa subdivision confer rare title on National Communication Council boss Joseph Chebonken Kalabupse in the Guardian Post. Until I come your way again, this is your Hour with the Press.
Thank you so much, Emanuela and with the Press. And we are going to put Professor Zengwa really brought on an hour with the Press today. I'm not going to be the only one to ask questions. Gala Kilian, freelance journalist and editor-in-chief, is also going to put him on a litmus test for Cameroonians to understand the research component of the Joint Commission on France's role and involvement in combating independence and opposition movements in Cameroon from 1945 to 1971. We need a clarification, and as a member of that commission, he is going to tell us. Now, Professor Zengwa, the first thing I will ask you is, how were you selected? What was the criteria?
Well, I should say that I don't know the criteria. I was in my village when I received a call, and I was asked whether, considering the CV in their disposal, whether I could avail myself to be engaged in this research work. And I said yes. I did not know any other member in the team. It was only after that I came to realize that we were 7 Cameroonians from the onset, 8 Cameroonians and 7 French. Things evolved and we became equal, 7 Cameroonian researchers and 7 French researchers. But what I know is that it was a careful study of our CVs.
It can only be that now. What was the methodology used? Can only be that.
What methodology used in the field?
In the field?
Yes, the methodology we use principally the qualitative data analysis strategy. The first thing is that we engage in getting primary sources. And these primary sources was to interview persons. And we did about 100 key witnesses of the terrorist, or call it the nationalist movements in Cameroon. And we decided to get into archival documentation. Permit me say that we got more than 2,100 boxes of archival documents. We got 2,300 newly declassified documents. And I should say that we had individuals who had lived in Cameroon, French military, Cameroon military experts, who surrendered some of their archives. And I should say we got these from Cameroon, we got it in France, we got it in Switzerland, the Netherlands, and say America and British archives.
And you say some of them were declassified.
2,300 newly declassified documents.
How do we know that there are some which you did not have access to because you have this? Did you have restrictions getting to some of the archives?
I must say that even some of the topmost French military archives, all of the researchers had access. So we did not have any impositions or any directions on where to go and where not to go. So I should say that we had access into all of the relevant archives. And permit me say that we did not only end there. We decided to engage in all the master's and PhD dissertations which are related to the study. I mean, all over the country. We went to Bamenda, Buea, most of the universities in Cameroon to actually touch the documents and have copies of them which are available. And let me note that many historians have written around this area, and we made sure that we spoke to some of the historians. We made sure that we used some of their documentation in order to do the analysis of facts and figures. That granted, after we got those archival documents and books as primary and secondary, we decided now to do analysis step by step. And I must say that the step-by-step analysis of these facts and figures were not done in divided ranks. There was nothing as being an Anglophone in the team or the Francophone in the team. There was nothing as being a Cameroonian or a French. We worked as researchers. We actually decided to adopt and put on a new garment, a garment of researchers who had been called upon to lay facts and figures straight. I think that is what we want. So
you are saying that we can trust this report?
Well, we should trust the report, because the report has come out with very interesting findings. Why shouldn't we trust a report? When fine researchers, 14 in number, with different backgrounds, come together to dig into the archives and put things straight, I think one thing is clear. There is no research work which is absolutely perfect. Our document is 1,035-page document. We will not expect to put in every element from all the nooks and crannies of Cameroon and France. But we set out to gain something, to investigate. Was there a French war in Cameroon? Permit me say that François Fillon, the French Prime Minister in 2009, outrightly refuted that there was no violence during the nationalist movement in Cameroon. In 2015, François Hollande came and moved a step forward and said, yes, there was violence. But what type of violence? Normal violence. In 2022, Macron came to publicly acknowledge that, yes, there was war in Cameroon. Therefore, the position of the French has evolved over time and space. And permit me say something.
And that's why I said it is a new approach,
yes,
what you have in this document. Could you permit us to, because we're going to ask you to give us the contents of this report, and I'm going to ask those questions to Ndala Kilian. We have Mr. Ejede who is here to complement some of these things. I just want us to relieve the handing over of this report that you are talking about to the President of the Republic, and our reporter, presidential correspondent Ashu Nyanti, leave that event, and he makes us relieve it today. Relieve that report, that event today. Ashu.
This ceremony marks a pivotal moment in Cameroon's history as the French-Cameroon Joint Commission presents its report on France's role and commitment in suppressing Cameroon's independence and nationalist movements. The report sheds light on a complex and often painful past, and its presentation is a crucial step towards acknowledgement and reconciliation. The venue, where diplomats typically present their letters of credence, adds to the ceremony's significance, having hosted numerous high-level diplomatic meetings and events. Attendees include President Paul Biya's closest administrative and diplomatic aides, including Minister of State and Secretary General Ferdinand Ngongo, Minister, Director of the Civil Cabinet Samuel Mbondo Ayolo, and Cameroon's Ambassador to France, André Magnus Ekumu. Also present are select government members such as Mbela Mbela of External Relations, Jacques Famendongo, Higher Education, Bidungpat Arts and Culture, and Madeleine Chuente, Scientific Research and Innovation. The French delegation is led by Minister Delegate Tani Mohamed Swalili, responsible for Francophonie and international partnerships. The ceremony marks the culmination of a process initiated on January 21st, when French President Emmanuel Macron received his copy of the report at the Élysée Palace in Paris. The arrival of President Paul Biya sets the stage for the co-chair of the Commission, French historian Karine Romande, to present an executive summary of the over 1,000-page document. The report presented by Karine Romande is a thorough examination of France's colonial past in Cameroon, revealing the dark spots and practical contours of French colonial maladministration. For his part, the French Minister Delegate Tani Mohamed Swalili acknowledged the report as a significant step towards a new era in Franco-Cameroonian relations. In his keynote address, President Biya emphasized that the report breaks all taboos and thaws the ice over the frosty colonial past between Cameroon and France. He described the unrestricted content of the report as a form of catharsis that will serve as collective therapy and mark a new dawn in Franco-Cameroonian relations. The ceremony concluded with the official presentation of the report to President Biya, followed by a symbolic handshake with each member of the research team and a family photograph capturing the joy and significance of the moment.
Thank you very much, Ashu Nyanti. He quotes the president as saying that the report breaks the taboos, some of the hidden things that you were just talking about, that have evolved with the different representatives of a very high representative, top representative of the French government. It has evolved. Who initiated this report, and what do you think the initiator at this time thought of?
Well, I think it is very incumbent to give credit to the President of Cameroon. In his book, Communal Liberalism, way back in 1987, he did mention that it was high time the heroes of nationalism should be publicly recognized. We are glad that he has lived to see this, especially with the push that came in from civil society organizations. I must say that the civil society organizations, both in Cameroon and France, actually pushed the French to accept such a study, because we did say earlier that top French personalities as late as the year 2000 had overtly rejected that there was no French war in Cameroon. And with the two presidents now acknowledging that a study should be carried on, I think credit should go to the two presidents. Because Biya, who had lived, who was an active member of the period, the post-colonial government, for him to accept that such a study be carried on while he lives on is unheard of. Others would have wanted to make sure that no such research was done. But the French, with the pressure, the two presidents wanted to build harmonious relationship between the two countries based on truth. And therefore the commission was put in place to get to the field to establish where the blames. Was there a war? Who is supposed to be blamed?
You are going to tell us that, as we were saying. We'll get into the contents of that report. And in your intervention right now, you talked about the communal liberalism of the President of the Republic, which was published in 1987. Ayimbile also had another angle to the event at the Unity Palace, and there we're going to get things like the declarations of the head of state during that ceremony. We'll come back to you, Killian, and to Mr. Ijede. But
in the hearts of many is one of those now engraved in the hearts of many is one of those enduring images. Paul Biya standing and in his hands a book, while two other figures very close to him and holding another voluminous book are apparently doing some explaining. A strong, commanding and reassuring presence of the President of the Republic, delighted to receive the France-Cameroon Joint Commission's report on France's role and commitment against independence and opposition movements in Cameroon. Results which the President, visionary and patriotic as he is, had long envisaged before the setting up of the Joint Commission.
It should be recalled that in 1987, in my book entitled Communal Liberalism, I stated that the independence of our country was hard-won by many worthy children from this land. Their works have been recognized and officially rehabilitated. The independence of our country was smashed from the colonial powers through their fierce battles, led at the time by combatants. Their common denominator was love of fatherland. It is up to our historians to give an objective and an unbiased account of what the decolonization process of our country was like.
Findings thus presented this Tuesday at the Unity Palace by the French historian Karine Ramodi that clearly demonstrates France's responsibility for violence during Cameroon's fight for independence. This enabled us to establish the responsibility of the French army and the French government in the death and murder of certain leaders of the UPC. A painful past not to vindicate, but to lay the foundation for stronger ties between Cameroon and France.
It is now up to us to teach and above all to propagate this meritorious co-construction between France and Cameroon, and to commit our future relations on a healthy basis.
Another milestone in the history of Cameroon under the impulse of a man with an extraordinary passion for peace, unity and progress for the fatherland, but also beyond its frontiers.
Yes, objective and unbiased account of what happened. That is the one thing out of the many that the president said that I want to hack on. Mr. Ijede, you are a researcher in history. You are a politician. This has a double overtone, if you like, on what is it. When you watch the president say these things, what's your reaction about what is happening, this report?
I think the first thing is to congratulate Prof. Congratulations. You see, history, first of all, is truth and is objectivity. It was high time that the truth be told because truly there's a decree in September 1991 that restituted or rehabilitated the independent fighters, the national heroes. But this was not being talked about enough for the young generation of Cameroonians to know. So coming today to have such a work, it's but normal and it is called for, because Cameroonians need to go down memory and look the role that the independence fighters played in the liberation movement of Cameroon to achieve independence. But now, the worry may be some of us. I'll take the casket now of a politician. Historically, I don't have any too much problem with it because
go ahead.
Yes, because as I rightly said,
history is facts
and it's objectivity. But taking the casket of a politician, our worry is that the first thing, this work was first of all presented but in France than in Cameroon, of which we were talking of Cameroon history. Cameroon history from 1945 to 1971.
The French involvement.
The French
role and involvement.
An involvement in the
means that it could start from France.
The French role and involvement in the independence, in the independence fighters in Cameroon. So we are talking of the Cameroon history, but it was first of all presented in France.
So what's your problem with that?
So the problem is first of all, we look it as like disrespect for our nation. As a politician, I'm taking that as disrespect for our nation. We thought of what Cameroonians think. That is why maybe you raised a good question, which was a worry that maybe can you ask the eminent prof if Cameroonians can trust this report? Yes. Now, if Cameroonians are having that worry, seeing that work, first of all, being presented, I saw the images where Prof was in France to present the work. But now, presenting the work in France poses a problem when Cameroonians are asking such questions. That why in France before coming into Cameroon? So that is the first thing. The second
but
thing,
it is said that he who laughs last laughs best. No, if you take it anyway, you will see that that is not actually a problem.
Killian, it is politically, in the political eye of it, we are seeing it as a problem. That's why I said this. You rightly made mention that it has two faces: the historical face of it and the political face. So I said, with me, the prof rightly said that with a history, a research work, it's never perfect. So Cameroonians are waiting to consume and to evaluate the work, because it remains for the Cameroonians or the world at large to consume and evaluate the work. As you rightly said, many historians, many researchers have written on the whole. He himself, Professor Willie Bronze, that I know very well, has written a lot about the independence struggle of the independence nationalists of Cameroon. So, but today we see that, though historically the facts needs to be presented to the public, but we are seeing that the political eye of it, we need to know some details so that Cameroonians, while consuming it, will feel that truly the work is coming first to bring rehabilitation, reparations, and restitutions to see how it can help. Maybe why not solve some pending problems, some topical problems in the political evolution of this country.
Thank you. You were. This is what I will ask you from what he's saying. What is the new thing in this report that we don't have in the other tons and tons of history that you and the people before you and even after you have come up with?
Thank you, Killian, but I'll plead with you to permit me make a remark on his question.
Yes.
Why did we go to France?
Ngala Killian,
first,
take over, you ask
is it a disregard to Cameroon government? I should rather say it was honor to the President of the Republic of Cameroon. First, as a matter of strategy, we decided to give the report first in France, and there was no press conference. There were no press statements as to the details of the work. It was done without any details, because every detail was reserved for Mr. Biya. So when we brought the document to Biya, it was respect for him to do it live and make public declarations, and we went on the media to talk about the work. In France, no member of the research team mentioned anything over the media. So, contrary to the point that it was disrespect, it was rather respect and an honor.
Now, this is the question. What new element do we have in this research, in the report, that we don't have in all the volumes of history about the decolonization of Cameroon Cameroon was never actually colonized, was a trusteeship before. It was a mandated territory and then a trusteeship under the League of Nations, under the UN, and then France and Britain were the ones taking care. What is the new element that we don't have in all those tons of history that we have in this one?
You will have a 1,035 page document, when other books are in 100 pages, a few pages, and so on. You can just imagine that I cannot highlight all the new elements. But we have tons and tons of new elements that are found in no history book.
Everything,
for example, let's give a case in point. Ernest Nwandi is largely believed to have been killed by the French. But the recently declassified documents holds the contrary. Going to the Foucault archives of the diplomatic and the diplomatic archives of France, there are divided responsibilities of the death, the killing, including Cameroonian officials. So that is one important component.
Yes, you'll go to the second. And on that particular component, people think that that is even why that report is, to make sure that the French don't say, oh, we are the ones who did this. They want to say that, oh, you Cameroonians, you also did that. Probably that is why the report is coming up.
But I don't want to give a contradictory idea. There is a huge responsibility at the doorsteps of France. Killing thousands and thousands of Cameroonians. Let me say that they were engaged in some polymorphic violence of different facets and phases. Political violence, social violence, judicial violence, psychological violence. It moved to outright warfare, where French military planes actually bombed out of existence some of the villages. We, in our research, counted 7,500 armed nationalist movements in Cameroon. 7,500. We have not seen that before. And then the thousands and thousands of people who were killed, civilians. We have not had that. Of course, there were speculations. We have come out very clearly about the number of persons who were thrown into the Meche Falls in the Western region live. We have come out with graves, mass graves in Etike, in Ngambe, and many other areas in Cameroon. So we have been able to say nationalist movement too, because many of those who have written about the UPC in Cameroon have almost always limited the nationalist movements only to be maybe in the western region of Cameroon, or the Senegal Maritime and Littoral regions. No, the research has brought out facts and figures to the effect that even the northwest and southwest regions were seriously affected.
Okay.
And that the French influence in the country even influenced the Fumban Conference and the Federal Constitution. We have come out with facts and figures that the UPC was found in all the regions in the country.
Thank you
That
very
is
much.
why we went around to touch those areas where the UPC.
Thank you so much for highlighting those points. We need to know. Now I'm going to give the floor to Ngala Kilian. You are facing the press, an hour with the press on Press Hour today. Kilian, you have some questions.
Yes,
for Prof.
let me just start by congratulating Prof and the whole research team for doing this wonderful piece of work, because for a very long time I think we've been reading our history in silos, reading just one part of the story, which is essentially to tell a lie, because if you get only one part of the story, it is a lie. You are being fed. You are being fed. And this is a document, 1,035 pages, Prof. I know you've already touched on a number of issues, but if somebody who has not read that document, what should that person know about the content?
Well, simply put, there was a French war in Cameroon, violent war in Cameroon, which led to many thousands of deaths. Let me say that this is not taught or is not mentioned in France as a whole. The French average citizen knows that there was a simple decolonization process in Cameroon, unlike in Algeria. So a typical French historian knows that there was violence in Algeria and there was no violence in Cameroon. So an average reader should know that there was outright violence in Cameroon, put at the doorsteps, responsibility clearly stated. Who killed who, where and when? We have the statistics. It is found there.
Yes, there was violence in Cameroon, and at least Cameroonians have an idea. But it's curious that you went to France, no press statements. You want the French to continue to live in ignorance of their own historical responsibility.
Thank you. We could not make a press statement in France without getting to Mr. Biya, because it is like a father sends you to the field with an envelope to go and pick the envelope, and by the time you come back, you have shown everybody along the way. So we had to give the envelope to the rightful owners before we make press statements. And don't forget, the press statements were not limited only to Cameroonian journalists, because about just a few minutes before we met the head of state of Cameroon, we already circulated the press statements to journalists all around the world. And we have been able to grant interviews all around the world. So it is not an issue of not doing a press statement there. It was just our strategy, communication strategy, not to reveal beforehand. I must be able to be fair here that most French newspapers have covered, the details of Biya's speech. Macron did not make a speech, an outright speech. Biya did.
You just touched on Algeria as overshadowing, the violence in Algeria somehow overshadowing what was happening in Cameroon. What do you see as the similarities and differences between the Algerian War of Independence and the struggle in Cameroon?
Well, similar. The simple point is that there were more French citizens in Algeria than in Cameroon. It was more violent there than in Cameroon. But let us realize that there was also a mixed commission to carry on the research, which never worked. Permit me say that this is one of the first and joint missions. In many of the other commissions, it was almost always carried out exclusively, either by French experts or by experts of the nationals. But this is very special. Ours is special because they tried to do a balance of French and Cameroonian researchers.
Now, you talked to French researchers and you consulted research works both in France and in Cameroon. Were there any differences in perspective between the works in France and those in Cameroon?
Like
how could you have reconciled those?
Even twins have differences. You see, we even have differences in Cameroon, historians, as to who should have been in the commission, who shouldn't have been in the commission. You know, every work of art, every social sciences inject some sort of dichotomies. So we do not expect that you bring 14 people who do not know themselves or who did not know themselves with diverse backgrounds to come and agree on every single point. No, we did not agree on every point. There were times it was very stormy, but something prevailed.
What were the
science?
What were those points?
I'm going to come to that.
Yeah.
I got my friend talked about reparation. Some others have been able to say were these atrocities or you call them war crimes. Could we classify it as war crimes when we are talking about thousands of people being killed? The mandate of a historian, we argued, but we got to reason that that was not the work of a historian. A historian is there simply to give a clear account of facts and figures without fear or favor, but again without judgment, without being judgmental. So we cannot term it whether it was a genocide or not. We cannot talk about reparation. So it is the law, the courts of law.
So historians, you don't have a right to say that Rwanda, for example, was a genocide as a historian?
As a historian, you don't have a right to make a declaration.
Killian,
what a historian is supposed to do, it is the law courts. Permit me clarify this.
Yes.
We have done our reports, our findings. We have put the blames where they are supposed to be. The French are squarely, we should say, 90% responsible for about 90% for all of the killings, the thousands of killings in Cameroon. Now we end there. The politicians have something to do. the legal luminaries may have something to do. They might pick up from there and carry out legal actions to say, okay, based on these findings of historians, the legal minds are, based on international law, should either consider it a genocide or not. Should either consider reparations or not. So that is not the handiwork of historians.
This is the point here. Kilian, you can continue. But let me also come in to ask this question. In a scientific research, and I think that this is a scientific research that has brought this report up, you end with suggestions. What are the suggestions? Could you not now bring up some suggestions which the law courts, the historians, the politicians could take on that? Because what I know is research work comes up with recommendations.
You're very correct. Do not forget we do the recommendations, which might not be part of our duty, although we did. But it is the politicians who effect those recommendations and not one. Permit me state clearly, as I said before, that the French citizens do not know about the violent French war in Cameroon. Many Cameroonians and many history books in Cameroon have been distorted without these facts and figures in them. So our recommendation was, one of our recommendations, these research findings should be made public to every single researcher. Immediately, we already sent out these documentations or our report. But again, we also recommended that politicians who are coining policies should be able to coin policies, educational policies, to integrate aspects of our work in schools and colleges so that people should be able to understand more.
Thank you, and permit me for insisting. The type of recommendation that I'm asking about, yes, you did that, is, yes, in such a situation, these people who suffered this, they have to go to what he raised, be given some reparations, things like that. That's the type of recommendation.
I insist.
Yes.
That we did make recommendations that these persons should be recognized. That statutes should be constructed in both countries. Libraries and bookshops, should be opened with archival documentation.
What about the families of those who were killed and the rest? We're thinking about that.
That is why I said we have established the findings. The names of some of the persons who were killed are very clear. Their families are clearly known. Again, it is not our mandate to suggest that Omnube's family should be compensated. Felix Roland Moumier's family should be compensated. And Toumaza's family, although he was not killed, he suffered under the same harshness of the French, should be compensated for all of his time out of Cameroon. It is not our mandate.
Yes,
our mandate is
we have put the
questions.
facts I give you the room to ask two
He
other
said
questions.
something about Omniobe as not being killed by the French.
Not Omnube.
NS1. Whereas I think most of our history books have indicted the French. Do we need to revise our own history?
We need to revise every single thing based on the facts and figures which are found in our archives. We have cited all of them. The Othande, the Ruben Omnube, Felix Roland Moumies, all the others. We have talked about these people being killed by the French. We have not ended there. We have talked about the thousands of people killed. But we have come out to get the facts clear that the French were not solely responsible for the death of one person, NS Owande. And we have given the archival reference, the Foucault archives.
Who killed
It
him?
was a combination of, permit me note this, that the French were very strong, their influence was very strong in Cameroon at the period of pre-independence, from 1945, when the war begins, especially from 1955 to 1960. When the country became independent, it is true the French continued in supplying weapons, in training. All of the military, or most of the military, had French orientation. But let us be very fair here, that there was also national influence. The government of the day wanted at all costs to stamp out radical nationalism. So Cameroonians themselves were responsible at a given time. Permit me note that there was a clash of history between the French and the Cameroon government at a particular period, to the extent that the Cameroon government decided to change their military suppliers to other countries. So the killing of Ernest Owandi was orchestrated more from within, from different associations, from, simply put, it was not the handiwork of the France.
Now, Prof, the UPC, which carries the burden of this nationalist movement, was created in 1948. But this period of your study spans from 1945 to 1971. How do you justify this period? And also,
Yeah, thank you. 1945 starts with the period of nationalism, I should say, pure nationalism in both British and French Cameroon. Let me say that that was when the territory, the Second World War came to an end. And after the Second World War, with the creation of the United Nations, Cameroonian territories, or the Cameroon territories, became United Nations Trust territories. These territories were supposed to be propelled towards self-government and independence. Permit me note that there were hundreds of Cameroonians who fought along the French army during the Second World War. Some of them returned home and they imbibed nationalist sentiments. So from 1945 is a very capital year, and the year in which there was some injection into the global space, where the world was divided into maybe the capitalist West and the socialist East. So there was tension. And now we evolve in this nationalist movement to talk about the creation of the party, to talk about the different political parties. Let us not limit ourselves there. And then to when elections were conducted, to 1955, when the party was banned in French Cameroon, it went underground to engage in what we call the Maquisard movement, the radical nationalism. And then we move on, getting the militants of this party extending their influence in the British Southern Cameroons. Let us note that the British also assisted the French in dismembering the UPC militants and radical nationalists in British Southern Cameroons. That is why the party was banned in British Cameroons
I want
in
to ask
1957.
Mr. Ajedege a question, but why 1971?
1971 because it's the years of the Owandi and the Ndongmo affair. You know, dates are not chosen haphazardly. We have given why it started in 1945, the end of the Second World War, why it ends in 1971 with the Ndongmo affair.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Ejede, we now know that there are new facts in the history of Cameroon. You are a researcher in history. What will you, how do you appreciate this, and what do you think should be done for us to have the real history of Cameroon?
No, I think what
your double capacity as a researcher in history and as a politician, because both go together.
Yes, history is a scientific work. The scientific part of it has been done. They have gone to the past. We are now at the present. Now it's how to go to the work and see how we can ameliorate the future. That is where d'accord with Prof. That is where the politician comes in, for us to restitute maybe responsibilities. Yes, we need to share the responsibilities. Who did what and who did this? And in all of this now, then maybe we can now be talking of also reparations. You see, this history is very, I think, this history is very important in the history of Cameroon, because one thing that I pondered is when I heard about the work, I was looking at the impact of that work, in the future of Cameroon. The impact of
So
that
what
work.
do you think the impact should be?
The impact should be a positive impact. That is what it should be. That's what I talked of. It's a scientific work. It has been done. Though the book will be made public, I don't know if it's already on a website. Where
it is.
Yes, the book will be made public. All of us have not had contact with the book. The book will be made public. All of us will get in contact with the book and we shall evaluate. I want to make mention to something here. I am d'accord also with Prof when he says that because the name of Ernest Wande came. Note that on the 15th of January that Ernest Wande was being killed. It was not the Cameroon had already been a state on its own. So only on that premise we can already come to a logical conclusion that the responsibility of the death of Ernest Wande cannot be attributed to the French. And take note also that he was judged, but in a Cameroonian military court. So maybe some of us who have that is why I said that history is objectivity, history is truth. Today we are getting the facts. It will be a wonderful work that we shall discover. I am optimistic, but I said I don't want to enter into too much into the history part of it.
Thank you, then. Yes.
Politically, we should look at how we can share the responsibilities, rehabilitate maybe all. Take note that there are some corpses today, I think probably that call me, that are not being seen. There are heads that were cut that are not being seen.
Yes.
So all this truth needs to, because you know our tradition.
Yes.
So we need all these things and we need to rehabilitate all things. And also, it will also,
thank you.
in the history of Cameroon, we also need this maybe to also see how we can unite Cameroonians.
Thank you so much, Killian. We have less than 2 minutes to go. Your way out, because we cannot continue with the debate.
Yeah, I mean, my premise was that there is a danger in telling the single story. When you tell a story only from one perspective, you are also just telling a lie. And I think that this tremendous work that the researchers have done, and we hope that the politicians will take from there and begin to apply the work on the ground, make sure that whoever did what should be accountable. There should be a period of accountability.
Thank you.
If the French killed people here, they should be accountable.
And as the President of the Republic said, objective and unbiased account. The last word goes to you. You are our august guest on this program today. Thank you very much. What do we take home from this report and this program?
What we take home is that the first way to resolve any conflict is to accept that the conflict existed. The French president, the Cameroonian president, gave us the latitude to investigate the existence. By doing that, it is public acceptance that there was a war in Cameroon. That is the beginning. And for Cameroonians, we want to lay the fears. The work has just started. An international conference will be organized by the Commission, bringing together every Tom, Dick, Harry who has any fact and figure hidden to be brought so that we can improve on the history of Cameroon, to reconcile Cameroonians and to reconcile the Cameroon-French relationship.
Thank you so much, Professor Zengwa Willie Broad, member of the research component of the Joint Commission on France's role in the involvement and combating independence and opposition movements in Cameroon from 1945 to 1971. Thank you so much for enlightening us. This was an hour with the press. We faced you. And I want to thank Ngala Killian, who is a freelance journalist, editor-in-chief, and Mr. Ejede, who also a peer, who is a researcher in history and a politician. Ladies and gentlemen, our honor that you were there to listen to us. But you can watch this program on Monday at 2:30, a rebroadcast of it, on CRTV Mother TV channel, and on Wednesday at 9 p.m. after the news in French on CRTV News. Thanks for watching.